No one on Flight 392 gave the new girl a second glance when she boarded. She moved like a shadow, thin, quiet, head down, hoodie pulled low enough that only a soft curtain of brunette hair peeked out around her face. She wasn't the type who bumped into people or made small talk or asked strangers to switch seats. She slipped into 14A like she was trying to fold herself into the window. The flight attendant, Rebecca, noticed her only because she noticed everything. Years in the air had sharpened her instincts, and something about the girl didn't sit right. Not dangerous, not exactly, just out of place. The girl held herself with a strange tension, like someone bracing for an impact only she could see coming. When the boarding doors clicked shut, the cabin hummed with the routine. Overhead bins slamming, safety demo half-watched, parents corralling kids, the usual flutter of pre-flight nerves. But the girl in 14A didn't look nervous. She just kept her eyes fixed out the window, where the distant mountains cut clean lines against a pale blue sky. Rebecca paused near her row. "Doing okay there?" she asked softly. The girl nodded once without looking up. Rebecca tried again, first time flying alone. A longer pause, then so quietly Rebecca almost missed it. Not exactly. There was something about her voice, controlled, deliberate, too carefully measured for someone her age. Rebecca opened her mouth to ask more, but the girl was already sliding in her earbuds, a universal sign for conversation over. So Rebecca left her alone. The plane taxied, engines roaring to life. The girl crossed her arms, squeezing her sleeves like she was grounding herself. No prayer, no fidgeting, no phone to record takeoff like many passengers did. She simply stared out the window as the aircraft surged forward, lifting into the sky. Minutes passed. Clouds drifted below in cotton-soft clusters. A baby cried somewhere behind her. Someone across the aisle complained about the Wi-Fi not connecting. Flight attendants rolled out the drink cart. Everything was routine, until suddenly it was. The first jolt was subtle, almost dismissible, just enough for heads to lift and for someone to mutter, "Turbulence." But the girl in 14A flinched like she'd been struck. Her eyes sharpened, zeroing in on the wing outside. She slid one earbud out, holding still. Rebecca felt the second jolt in her teeth. It rattled the overhead bins, knocking a coffee from the cart and splattering across the aisle. Children whimpered. A man swore under his breath. Someone hit the call button. The girl sat up straighter. Rebecca pressed a hand to the overhead panel, bracing herself. "Ladies and gentlemen," the captain's voice crackled through the intercom, tense and strained in a way that made Rebecca's stomach drop. "We're experiencing some unexpected instability. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened." Instability. Not turbulence. He didn't say turbulence. Rebecca glanced at 14A, and this time she caught it. The way the girl's eyes scanned the cabin, not as a scared passenger but like someone assessing variables. Angles, weight distribution, emergency response patterns. Who the hell is she? Rebecca wondered. Then it happened. A shudder ripped through the aircraft, violent, metallic, like something tearing itself apart. A shrill mechanical scream filled the air. Passengers screamed with it. A suitcase burst from an overhead bin, thudding into the aisle. The plane tilted sharply left. Drinks flew. People grabbed armrests. A woman began sobbing, praying out loud. The baby behind the girl wailed uncontrollably. Oxygen masks didn't fall, but they jingled ominously, trembling from the force. Rebecca stumbled, catching herself on the seatbacks. Her heart hammered. She felt turbulence. She'd flown through storms, she'd been in rough air before. But she had never, ever felt anything like that. And neither had the girl, apparently, but her reaction was different. She wasn't panicking. She wasn't frozen. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, but her eyes were locked on the wing with laser-focused intensity. She leaned closer to the window, squinting. Her lips parted slightly, as if she saw something no one else could. Finally she whispered, barely audible. That wasn't turbulence. Rebecca heard it, and it scared her far more than the jolt did. Because the girl said it with absolute certainty. Another metallic groan shredded the air, this one louder, deeper. Wrong. Something outside flickered, a brief flash of orange reflecting off the wing. Rebecca's breath caught, and the girl in 14A went completely still. No flinch. No gasp. No panic. Just still. Like someone who'd been waiting for this moment, dreading it, and recognizing it the second it arrived. The plane stabilized for half a second, long enough for false hope to rise, then dropped so abruptly that several passengers levitated inches off their seats before slamming back down. Screams filled the cabin. The intercom clicked again, and this time the captain's voice sounded raw. Flight 392, we have a developing situation. Is there anyone on board with any aviation experience? Any pilots? We could use any assistance. The phrase "we could use any assistance" was not something a commercial captain ever said, unless the situation was truly dire. Rebecca's breath shook. A man a few rows back shouted, "Is this a joke?" Another yelled, "Do something." Someone started screaming uncontrollably, their panic spiraling. But the girl in 14A didn't scream. She didn't ask what was happening. She slowly removed her second earbud. She sat up, and she made a decision. When she unbuckled her seatbelt, Rebecca grabbed her arm instinctively. "Sweetheart, you need to stay seated." The girl met her eyes for the first time. What Rebecca saw wasn't fear, or recklessness, or childish bravado. It was something cold, sharp, precise. Something trained. "Ma'am," the girl said quietly, "I need to get to the cockpit." Rebecca froze. Why? The girl's gaze drifted to the window, where a faint trail of smoke curled past the glass. She looked back, and for the first time, she spoke with no hesitation, no attempt to hide the truth. "Because you're losing an engine." Rebecca's heart dropped. Passengers kept screaming, but the girl ignored them. She stood, gripping the seatbacks to keep balance as the aircraft shook around her. Rebecca stared after her, torn between protocol and instinct. The girl took one step forward, then another, until half the plane was watching the quiet girl, not with dismissal this time, but with dawning, desperate hope. And Rebecca realized something that chilled her. The new girl didn't walk like a passenger. She walked like someone who had been in a cockpit before. Someone who had been trained. Someone who recognized the sound of an engine dying in midair. And as the plane lurched violently again, sending screams rippling through the cabin, the girl braced herself and whispered under her breath, "I hoped this day would never come." Then she headed for the cockpit door, while everyone watched in terrified silence. And no one, not even Rebecca, had any clue who she really was, or what she was about to reveal. The aisle tilted beneath her feet as the girl moved toward the cockpit, each step a battle against the shuddering aircraft. The plane vibrated with a sickening, uneven rhythm, too heavy on one side, too light on the other, like a giant bird with a broken wing struggling to stay aloft. Passengers clung to armrests. A mother shielded her crying toddler with trembling arms. A businessman shouted into the panicked chaos, "Someone stop her, she's just a kid." But no one actually tried. Fear had frozen them all. Except her. Rebecca caught up, grabbing the girl's elbow. "Listen," she whispered urgently. "What you said back there about the engine, how could you tell?" A deafening bang shook the cabin. Not a pop. Not a jolt. A detonation. The aircraft lurched violently, throwing Rebecca sideways and sending several passengers crashing against seats. A woman's scream shot through the cabin. Drinks spilled everywhere. The lights flickered. Outside the left windows, nothing seemed wrong. but outside the right windows. People gasped. A long, bright trail of flame streamed from under the wing like a ribbon of hellfire. The right engine was burning. The girl exhaled slowly, almost sadly. "I told you." She took another step, but Rebecca stopped her again, voice quivering. "Sweetheart, even if you know something, this is a cockpit. This isn't a place for passengers. They can't just—" The intercom crackled on again, and this time the captain's voice broke. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've experienced a catastrophic failure in our right engine." Catastrophic. A word pilots avoided at all costs. His breathing was audible through the speakers, fast, panicked. "If there are any pilots or anyone with aviation training, please come forward immediately. We are struggling to maintain control." The cabin erupted into 100 fearful voices at once. "What do you mean, struggling? Oh my God, are we going to crash? Do something, someone do something." One man shouted at the girl, "If you know so much, help him." She didn't respond. She just started walking again. Rebecca's pulse hammered. "Who are you?" she whispered. But the girl didn't answer. Instead, she reached the cockpit door just as another violent jolt rammed the plane sideways. Passengers screamed in unison. The plane dipped hard, dropping what felt like several hundred feet in a single breath. The sensation was like falling through a trapdoor out of the sky. People's stomachs lurched, someone vomited, baggage rolled down the aisle, alarms wailed from the cockpit behind the closed door. Rebecca and the girl both stumbled, gripping seatbacks. The plane leveled barely, but the metallic rattling grew worse. The girl steadied herself and turned to Rebecca. Her eyes, calm, deep, impossibly focused, met the flight attendant's trembling ones. "Open the door," the girl said quietly. Rebecca shook her head. "I can't just, this isn't normal procedure. I can't let passengers into the cockpit." The girl leaned in, voice low and firm. "You don't have normal procedures anymore." Before Rebecca could respond, the cockpit door clicked open from inside, just a crack. The captain's pale face appeared, soaked in sweat. "What's going on out here?" he panted. Behind him, alarms blared. The co-pilot shouted something about losing hydraulic pressure. Warning lights flashed red across the instrument panel. The captain stared at the girl. "I heard someone out here say you know aviation. Is that true?" She swallowed, nodding once. "Are you a student pilot, Air Force cadet, Civil Air Patrol?" For a second she froze. That hesitation made Rebecca realize she was hiding something big. Finally she answered, "Something like that." The captain's jaw clenched. Another alarm shrieked from inside the cockpit. "Fine," he said, throwing the door open wider. "Get in here, now." The girl slipped inside. Rebecca watched in stunned disbelief as the captain locked the door behind her. Inside the cockpit felt like stepping into the nerve center of a burning machine. Warning tones pulsed like a heartbeat about to flatline. Screens flashed red. Needles swung wildly. The yoke trembled with the unnatural shake of a wounded aircraft fighting gravity. The co-pilot, early 30s, freckles, terrified eyes, looked at the girl like she was a hallucination. "Captain, she's a kid." "We don't have time," the captain snapped. "She says she has training." The girl slid into the vacant third jump seat for half a second. But when the plane suddenly dropped again, instinct took over. She lunged forward, grabbed the back of the co-pilot's seat, and reached for the stabilizer trim switches without hesitation. "Don't touch that," the co-pilot barked. But then he froze when he saw her fingers. Not shaking. Not guessing. Not experimenting. Confident, precise. Like she knew every switch, every gauge, every panel by heart. The captain watched her move and whispered, "Where did you learn those procedures?" The girl didn't answer. The right engine gauge was a graveyard, zero thrust, flaming hot, pressure warnings cascading. The autopilot struggled to compensate but kept kicking off with a violent jolt. The captain looked at her again. "You really know what you're doing, don't you?" She didn't meet his eyes. She just kept analyzing the panels, her jaw clenched. Another hard shudder rocked the cockpit. The co-pilot gripped the yoke, cursing. "We're losing hydraulic pressure in the right wing. The controls are sluggish as hell." The captain looked desperate. "If you've got anything at all that can help, do it." The girl took a breath. Then she stepped toward the co-pilot. "Let me sit," she said. The co-pilot blinked. "Excuse me." "Let me sit," she repeated. Not loud, not forceful, but with a tone that made both men go still. The plane trembled again. The altitude reading dipped. The stall warning buzzed. "Captain," the co-pilot shouted, "you can't be serious." But the captain wasn't looking at his co-pilot. He was looking at her hands. They weren't the hands of a student pilot. Not the hands of someone who watched tutorials online. Not someone pretending. They were the hands of someone who had spent thousands of hours with flight controls. He made his decision in 2 seconds. "Move," the captain ordered. The co-pilot stared in disbelief. "Captain, she's a kid." "And you're about to lose control of this aircraft," the captain snapped. "Move." The co-pilot reluctantly slid out of his seat. The girl immediately sat down, adjusted the rudder pedals, and wrapped her hands around the trembling yoke. Her fingers tightened. Her breathing steadied. Her eyes sharpened with zero fear. And the captain finally understood. This girl wasn't discovering the controls. She was remembering them. Another jolt threw the plane sideways. The horizon tilted. The girl reacted instantly, countering the roll with a rapid stabilizer correction, forcing the nose level enough to stop the descent. The alarm softened. The cabin steadied. The aircraft stopped spiraling. The captain's mouth fell open. "What the hell," he whispered, "are you?" For the first time, the girl looked him directly in the eyes. But she still didn't answer. Outside, the engine fire raged. And inside, the truth about the quiet girl was only beginning to surface. The cockpit felt impossibly small. Too many alarms, too many flashing lights, too little air. The girl sat in the co-pilot's seat like she'd been born there, hands steady on the trembling yoke, posture locked in concentration. The aircraft's violent shuddering eased only slightly, but it eased because of her. The co-pilot hovered behind her, pale and incredulous. "Captain, this is insane," he muttered. "We don't even know who she is." The captain wasn't listening. He was watching her, watching how her grip shifted subtly to compensate for the broken engine, how she skimmed the instrument panels with her eyes like she understood them on a level even he didn't. He leaned closer. "What's your name?" She didn't respond. The captain tried again. "I need to know who I just put at my controls." She only shook her head once, jaw tight. Her eyes flicked across the altimeter, dropping too fast. The stall warning briefly chirped before quieting again. She adjusted the pitch with quick, nearly surgical precision. Her silence wasn't rude. It was careful. The co-pilot finally snapped, unable to contain his panic. "This is a commercial airliner, not a simulator. If you mess up even one." The plane dipped sharply. He grabbed a rail to keep from falling. The captain braced himself. "Pull up, pull up." "I'm trying," the girl muttered. But unlike the panic in the men's voices, hers held something else: calculation. She was running numbers in her head without needing a pen or screen. She nudged the yoke again, feeling out the aircraft's struggling response. The massive jet groaned, fighting gravity, with uneven wings and failing hydraulics. Rebecca's frantic voice crackled over the intercom. "Cockpit people are screaming back here. Are we okay? Do we need emergency?" "We're working on it," the captain said sharply, cutting her off. His voice was steady, but sweat dripped down the side of his face. The girl exhaled through her nose, slow, controlled. She reached for the auxiliary power panel. The co-pilot grabbed her wrist instinctively. "What are you doing? You can't just—" Her eyes snapped to his, cold and unflinching. "Do you want to keep the remaining hydraulics or not?" The co-pilot froze. She pulled her hand free and flipped the exact 3 switches that reduced power to non-essential systems. The cockpit lights dimmed. The shrillest alarm cut off. The yoke steadied, slightly. The captain stared. "How did you know?" "I just know." The tone in her voice wasn't confidence. It was exhaustion, like someone who'd been running from something for a long time. The captain's patience finally cracked. "I need honesty. Are you a pilot, military, civilian? How do you know these systems?" The girl hesitated for the first time. Her fingers tightened on the yoke. She closed her eyes for a heartbeat, just one, then opened them again, resignation settling in. "I wasn't supposed to be here," she whispered. The co-pilot blinked. "On this plane?" "No," she said quietly, "anywhere." The men exchanged a confused look. Outside, the burning engine flickered and spat sparks into the wind. The cabin rattled as pressure equalized unevenly. The girl swallowed hard. "I can help stabilize the aircraft, but I need you both to trust me." The co-pilot scoffed. "Trust you? We don't even know you're—" She interrupted him, voice trembling but not with fear. "With memory. I've flown aircraft with worse failures than this." The captain's head snapped toward her. "What kind of aircraft?" She looked away. "Classified ones." The cockpit fell silent. The co-pilot snorted. "Okay, that's no way. You're what, 19, 20? What classified aircraft could someone your age?" Her voice cut through him like a blade. "I was recruited when I was 14. The co-pilot stopped breathing. The captain stared at her like she'd just spoken in another language. 14? That's impossible. No military program recruits minors." She didn't answer. Instead, she countered the aircraft's roll again, faster than the co-pilot had even noticed it starting. The captain whispered, "Dear God, she's not lying." The girl kept her eyes forward. "You asked if I was a pilot." She took a breath. "A pilot isn't the right word for what I was." Lightning flashed far off over the Rockies. The aircraft jerked again, dropping another 100 feet before she caught it with a sharp, skilled correction. Her knuckles were white around the controls. "Then what were you?" the captain asked softly. Her voice cracked the tiniest bit. "A test subject." That sentence hollowed out the cockpit. She continued, voice barely above a whisper. "Aviation, simulation, neural reflex research, experimental aircraft. I didn't have a normal childhood. I had briefings. I had protocols. I had instructors who never told me their real names." The co-pilot swallowed, horrified. "Jesus and your parents." She shook her head. "I don't know where they are now." The weight of that landed heavier than the turbulence. The captain exhaled slowly. "What about official records? Who supervised you?" Her lips tightened. "People who don't want me found." The plane lurched again. Altitude dropped 7,000 feet, 6,900, 6,800. She countered hard. The descent slowed. The captain stared at her hands, fast, precise, intuitive. He realized something. She was not learning this aircraft. She was adapting to it like someone who had flown dozens of machines, some conventional, some not. The co-pilot's voice cracked. "Why would they let you go? Why are you even on this flight?" She shook her head. "I said I wasn't supposed to be here. I meant it." The captain tried to piece it together. The secrecy, the reflexes, the intuition, the panic in her eyes whenever she hesitated to answer. "You escaped, didn't you?" She froze. And that was answer enough. She whispered, "I left in the middle of the night with everything I could carry, which wasn't much." The co-pilot stepped back like she was radioactive. So you're telling us you're some runaway government experiment and we're supposed to? Get over it, the captain snapped. Look at that engine, we need her. The girl swallowed again. I can keep us in the air, but landing. She trailed off. Neither man liked that pause. What about landing? The captain asked. She hesitated. Her hands trembled just once before stabilizing on the yoke. I was trained for extreme maneuvers, evasive flying. Not typical. Not normal. The captain's eyes widened. You were trained to survive, not land. She nodded. The co-pilot cursed under his breath. Her voice softened, barely holding together. I can try, but if the hydraulics fail before we descend. The aircraft shook violently again, as if trying to prove her point. She clamped down on the controls and forced it level. We may not get a second chance. The captain stared at her like she was the only thing keeping death from walking through the cockpit door. Okay, he said finally, voice steady. We trust you. The girl blinked, once, like the words hit harder than the turbulence. But the moment was shattered by a sudden, shrill alert from the radio. ATC, Flight 392, your descent rate is too high. Identify yourselves immediately. The captain reached for the mic. But the girl grabbed it first. And when she spoke into the radio, her voice changed, steel replacing fear. This is Sierra 19. The captain's heart stopped. The co-pilot went ghost white. The airspace around them went silent. Outside the cockpit window, the burning engine sparked again. Inside, the temperature dropped with the weight of her confession. And far away, someone listening on the other end of the radio whispered the words that would change everything. That call sign is restricted. For 3 long seconds, the cockpit was silent except for the shrieking engine alarms. The girl's voice still echoed through the radio headset. This is Sierra 19. The co-pilot stared at her like she just detonated a bomb in the cockpit. His mouth hung open. The captain's hand hovered in the air, still reaching for the mic he never expected her to take. Sierra 19, he whispered, that's not possible. But she didn't look at him. She couldn't. Her grip on the yoke tightened until her knuckles whitened. The aircraft jerked again, altitude slipping, 29,000 feet, 28,700, 28400. She fought it. ATC came back on the radio, voice suddenly rigid and formal. Repeat your call sign, verification required. She didn't answer. The captain tried. ATC, this is Captain Reynolds of. The radio cut him off sharply. Captain Reynolds, stand by. Operator Sierra 19, you will answer directly. The co-pilot muttered, Holy, they're not talking to us. They're talking to her. The captain turned to the girl, voice low but urgent. What does that call sign mean? Who exactly are you? Her jaw flexed. She kept her eyes on the trembling horizon, refusing to look at him. I told you, she murmured, I wasn't supposed to leave. Another violent shudder ripped through the fuselage. Rebecca's voice crackled over the intercom, panicked. Cockpit, the passengers can see flames outside. We need some kind of announcement, anything. Not now, the captain snapped. He shut off the cabin intercom with shaking fingers. The girl adjusted the trim, her breathing shallow but controlled. Captain, we're going to lose stability again in 60 seconds, unless we lighten the right side compensation. How do you? Just trust me. He did. He adjusted what she told him to adjust. The plane steadied barely. But the radio was not done. A new voice came on frequency, colder than the last. Deep, military, calm in a way that terrified all 3 of them. Sierra 19, confirm identity. This channel is now classified. The girl flinched. The co-pilot whispered, they know her. Oh my God, they actually know her. She finally spoke, voice shaking. Control, this is Sierra 19, emergency situation. One engine gone, hydraulics fatting. Civilian passengers on board. I'm requesting. The voice cut her off again. You are not authorized to leave your program. The captain's stomach dropped. This wasn't ATC. This wasn't a regional control center. This wasn't even NORAD, not fully. This was deeper. The girl's voice cracked with emotion she'd been trying to keep buried. I know, but I didn't have a choice. State your current aircraft, the voice commanded. She hesitated. I'm on a commercial Boeing 737. The voice froze. Silence stretched for a full 5 seconds, a lifetime in a failing aircraft. Then, you're flying a civilian jet. The co-pilot exploded. What the hell is happening right now? Who is she? The girl ignored him. Instead, she took a steadying breath and said the words she knew would make everything worse. We need an emergency corridor to Denver. I'm taking the aircraft down. The radio responded instantly, too quickly. Negative, you are not cleared to land, hold position. The captain blinked. They're denying an emergency landing. That's illegal. They can't do that. But the girl already knew why. Her voice sank into a whisper. They don't care about the plane. The co-pilot's eyes widened. They care about you. The aircraft shuddered hard, another hydraulic warning blaring. She countered again, sweat running down her temples. But outside, something else appeared in the distance. Rebecca's voice came over the intercom again, shaky, terrified. Captain, there are jets outside. He and the co-pilot whipped their heads to the forward window. 2 metallic streaks glinted in the sunlight, closing the distance fast, sleek, sharp, deadly. F-22 Raptors. The captain whispered, holy, they scrambled fighters, for you. The girl kept her eyes on the horizon, but her voice was barely steady. Yeah, she murmured, they're coming for me. The co-pilot stepped back like she'd grown fangs. You're a threat, they think you're a threat. She didn't answer. The cockpit radio crackled again, this time encrypted. Sierra 19, this is Reaper Lead. You are ordered to respond. The girl's breath hitched, the muscles in her jaw tightened. She reached for the mic with a trembling hand. Reaper Lead, she whispered, copy. The captain looked between the girl and the approaching Raptors, panic rising. Why are they talking to you? Why are they even? Reaper Lead cut in with a voice like steel. Sierra 19, confirm you are the same operator assigned to the Ghost Horizon program. The cockpit froze. The co-pilot's face drained of blood. Ghost Horizon, that program doesn't exist, that's a rumor. The girl didn't deny it. She couldn't. The captain's heart thudded in his chest. Tell me that's not where you came from. Her hand slipped slightly on the yoke, just a fraction. Enough to reveal fear she'd been hiding through pain, through emergency, through chaos. I didn't ask to be part of it, she said softly, but I was. The co-pilot shook his head. You can't be serious. Ghost Horizon it's the rumor about neural pilots, kids trained like machines, controlled reflexes, experimental jets, weaponized cognition. She closed her eyes. I know what the rumors say. I lived it. The captain stared at her like seeing her for the first time. But you're just a kid. A tear slipped down her cheek. She didn't wipe it. Exactly, she whispered. Exactly why they chose me. Outside, the F-22s locked into formation, one on each side of the crippled jet. Their silver wings glinted like blades. Reaper Lead spoke again, tone chillingly calm. Sierra 19, stand by for instructions. The girl stiffened. Say again, she said, voice tight. You're breaking up. But Reaper Lead wasn't breaking up. He was hesitating. Then he said it. Command wants confirmation whether you still possess active access codes. The captain turned white. The co-pilot staggered back. The girl's breath stopped. "Don't answer that," the captain whispered urgently. "Whatever that means, don't answer." But the radio wasn't done. "If you do, you cannot be allowed to land." The cockpit air turned to ice. The co-pilot whispered, horrified, "They'll shoot us down with everyone on board." The girl's hands shook, finally losing control she'd held onto so tightly. And with a voice small, terrified and broken, she whispered, "They don't care about the passengers. They only care about me." The captain stared at her, heart pounding. "What did you do?" She inhaled shakily. "The right thing." Another alarm blared. Altitude 21,000 feet. Hydraulics failing. F-22s armed. Passengers screaming. And in the middle of all of it, the girl whispered a truth that sealed the fate of everyone on board. "I wasn't supposed to leave the program. And now they're here to make sure I never reach the ground." The girl's chest rose and fell in shallow, rapid breaths as she locked onto the failing engine indicators. Warning lights continued flashing like a red storm inside the cockpit. Even with the autopilot disabled, the yoke kept shaking like a living thing trying to wrench itself free of her grip. Outside the cockpit windows, the sky churned a violent gray. Turbulence struck again hard. The airframe rattled. Panels creaked. Something in the tail made a metallic groan that punched unease through everyone listening. The co-pilot braced one hand against the ceiling. "We're losing altitude again. We can't hold this bird up on one engine if that pressure keeps dropping." The captain turned toward the girl, still pale, still sweating, but his eyes filled with something between fear and respect. "Tell me what you need," he said. "I'll follow your lead, but I need to know who I'm following." Her knuckles whitened around the trembling yoke. She didn't look away from the gauges. "You don't need my name," she muttered. "Names won't keep this plane in the air." "That's not what I asked," the captain shot back. "If you know what you're doing, if you know something we don't, then tell me what branch trained you. Civilian, military?" The girl's jaw tensed. The co-pilot whispered, "She's hiding something." But before she could respond, the plane lurched violently, thrown by a sudden downdraft. The cockpit shook. The altimeter spun down another 100 feet. The stall warning wail returned with brutal intensity. The girl didn't hesitate. "Throttle up, compensate for the asymmetric thrust," she barked. The captain obeyed instantly, pushing the left engine throttle further. The aircraft resisted, yawing sharply like a wild animal trying to break free from its leash. She countered with fast, aggressive rudder control, far too aggressive for a trainee, far too perfect for guesswork. The co-pilot stared. "How did you know to?" "Because if you hadn't, we'd be upside down," she snapped. "Just keep feeding me the numbers." Her voice cracked slightly on the last word. She was afraid, but fear didn't slow her down. If anything, it sharpened her. Black, black, black. Outside the cockpit, the passengers were sobbing, praying, clutching one another, as if the entire world had narrowed to the space between their shaking hands. Rebecca paced the aisle, trying to keep her composure while every few seconds another jolt or rapid drop made her stomach twist into a knot. She pressed her palm flat against the cockpit door and swore she could hear the girl's voice, firm, commanding, impossibly steady for someone barely old enough to rent a car. Who was she? Black, black, black. Inside the cockpit, the captain finally spoke what everyone was thinking. "You're not self-taught," he said quietly. She still didn't answer. "You're not a cadet, not civilian, not hobby-trained." Another violent shudder rattled the cockpit, but the captain barely flinched as he continued. "You fly like someone who's done time in a tactical simulator, someone who's trained under high-G stress, someone who's learned to make decisions under blackout pressure." The co-pilot swallowed, his voice cracking. "She flies like Air Force." The girl's hands paused on the controls for the faintest fraction of a second. It was tiny, but it was enough. The captain caught it. He leaned forward slowly, his eyes narrowing. "What's your call sign?" Her breathing hitched. "I don't have one," she said quickly. "That's a lie," the captain said almost gently. "A good one, but still a lie." "I'm not military," she insisted. "Then answer the question," he pressed. "Because you don't fly like a student. You don't fly like someone who's just watched videos or sat in a cockpit for fun." He pointed at the instrument panel. "You recognized the hydraulic issue before the alarms hit. You compensated for the yaw before I even felt it. You reached for the correct stabilizer trim without hesitation." His voice softened even further, but it carried an undeniable authority. "No one does all that unless they've done more than fly." The co-pilot stared at her like she was something out of an impossible story. "Your Air Force," he whispered. "You have to be." Her eyes watered, not dramatically, just a single glimmer of emotion she fought back with everything she had. Then, a new alarm blared. A fast, rising tone. The girl's head snapped toward the screen. "Fire spreading," she whispered. "Fuel's leaking and it's feeding the flames." The captain cursed under his breath. "How much time does that give us?" the co-pilot asked, paling. The girl didn't answer right away. She watched the numbers drop. She watched the heat signature bloom. She watched the pressure gauge twitch downward like a dying heartbeat. And then she said, "Not enough." Black, black, black. The plane shuddered again, harder than before. Something clanged from the undercarriage. A panel rattled loose near the tail. The girl fought the controls, sweat rolling down the side of her face. The muscles in her arms strained. The yoke shook so violently she could feel its vibrations all the way into her spine. The captain stared, stunned, as she stabilized the aircraft, again, just long enough to buy a few more seconds of flight. "She's flying on instinct," he whispered, "and that level of instinct is trained." The co-pilot nodded. "Trained at a very high level." Suddenly the radio crackled, weak but audible. "Commercial Flight 621, this is NORAD. You have a severe engine fire and a transponder malfunction. 2 F-22 Raptors are vectoring to your location to provide visual assessment." The girl's eyes widened with something that looked like dread, not fear. "Dread." The captain keyed the mic. "Copy that, NORAD. We appreciate the assistance. Expect visual contact in approximately 45 seconds." The girl looked away from the window. "45 seconds," she whispered. The captain frowned. "What's wrong?" She didn't respond. The co-pilot pressed. "Why does that bother you?" Her eyes squeezed shut. And in that moment, the truth trembled right behind them. She knew exactly what the F-22 pilots would see. She knew exactly what they would say. She knew the moment they identified her flight path corrections, her throttle balancing, her rudder technique, her stabilizer countermeasures. They would know. They would recognize the signature, the style, the flying fingerprint. And they would say the words she'd spent months running from. Her voice finally cracked. I can't let them see me." The captain blinked. "What are you talking about?" The girl looked up at him, her eyes terrified in a way they hadn't been even once while flying a dying plane through a storm. "They'll recognize my flying," she whispered. "They'll know my maneuvers, they'll know my pattern, and when they do..." Her voice dropped into a trembling whisper. "They'll say my call sign over the radio." The co-pilot stared. "What call sign?" She swallowed hard. The plane trembled, warning alarms screamed again. And with tears gathering in her eyes, she said, "The one I swore I'd never use again." Storm clouds split just enough for daylight to slash through the cockpit windows, sharp, white, and blinding. The girl squinted, her fingers tightening on the trembling yoke as the aircraft shuddered again. The right engine's fire alarms screamed like metallic sirens. Heat signatures pulsed red on the screen. Fuel pressure dipped lower. The passengers behind the locked cockpit door had no idea how close they were to becoming a headline. But she knew. She spent too many nights dreaming of burning metal, spiraling skis, and radio silence. And now she was right back in the nightmare she thought she'd left behind. Black, black, black. Contact in 10 seconds, the radio crackled. 10 seconds. The girl's breath caught in her throat. The captain noticed the panic rising behind her eyes. Not fear of the crash. Not fear of the fire. This was different. This was personal. What's going to happen when they see you fly? He asked quietly. She didn't answer. Are you wanted? The co-pilot whispered. Did you defect? Did you leave a program? Are they searching for you? I didn't defect, she snapped. I never signed up voluntarily. What does that even mean? It means, she whispered, I never had a choice. A shadow swept across the cockpit. A massive metallic silhouette. Then another. 2 F-22 Raptors appeared on the left side of the aircraft, sleek, predatory, gliding with effortless precision. Their presence radiated power, discipline, and deadly silence. The captain exhaled. There they are. The girl couldn't breathe. Her pulse thundered. Her palms sweat against the yoke. Her legs shook under the console. The Raptors dipped their wings, standard escort greeting. But then one of them climbed slightly, banking closer, tilting just enough to observe the cockpit. Its nose angled directly toward her window. The pilot inside could see her. Even from a distance, she could feel his eyes sweep over her posture, her grip, her micro-corrections. He wasn't just looking, he was analyzing. And then it happened. The Raptor shifted position, sliding into a formation only one kind of pilot used. Her kind. No, she whispered. No, no, no. The captain's brow furrowed. What's wrong? They're not performing a standard escort, she said, voice trembling. They're doing pattern recognition steering. The co-pilot blinked, which means. Her throat tightened. They're analyzing my movements. The F-22 dipped again, matching the exact rudder pressure she applied a second earlier. It mimicked her like a reflection. The Raptors are reading your flying signature, the captain realized. Her lips parted in horror. And in about 5 seconds, she whispered, they're going to know exactly who's flying this plane. Black, black, black. The radio clicked on. Static. Then, Commercial Flight 621, pilot in command, respond. The captain pressed the mic. This is your captain, we're managing. The F-22 pilot cut him off. Not rude. Not aggressive. But urgent. We need to speak to the individual currently controlling your aircraft. The girl froze. The cockpit went silent. The co-pilot stared at her like he just discovered a ghost living inside a teenager's body. The captain's hand hovered over the mic. Who are you trying to reach? Another silence. Then the fighter pilot spoke again, calm but unmistakably shaken. We detected control signatures consistent with a classified training pattern. The girl's heart slammed against her ribs. No. They weren't supposed to know. She wasn't supposed to be found. The captain leaned close. What call sign are they thinking of? She shook her head violently. I can't, please don't put me on the comms, please. You saved this flight, the captain said. You can save it again. You just need to tell me what's going on. Her breath hitched. It was supposed to be sealed, she said. All of it, my training, my file, my squadron, the program. What program? The co-pilot pressed. Her voice trembled. The Starlight Initiative. Neither man reacted until she continued. It was a classified youth flight development experiment. They picked children with perfect reflex arcs, perfect processing speed, perfect spatial awareness. Kids who could think faster than grown pilots in pressure tests. We were trained in secret simulators, secret airfields. Our call signs weren't names. They were data markers. The co-pilot's jaw dropped. That program was a rumor, a myth. It was real, she whispered, too real. The captain stared at her with disbelief bordering awe. How old were you? 8, she whispered. Silence. Even the alarms seemed quieter for a moment. They started us at 8. The captain's voice cracked. Why would they do that? Because we were never meant to fly real missions. We were meant to create a template, a behavior model, the perfect neural blueprint for autonomous combat systems. The co-pilot inhaled sharply. You were prototypes. She nodded. They trained us until our brains broke. Black, black, black. Another burst of static hit the radio. Unidentified pilot, the F-22 voice said, firmer now. Respond. Your pattern matches a missing program asset. The girl shut her eyes in pain. Asset. Not person. Not pilot. Asset. The captain reached over, moving the mic toward her. Kid, this is your moment to come clean. She shook her head violently. They'll take me. They'll drag me back. I can't go back. Back where? The co-pilot demanded. To the program, she said. To the labs, to the tests, to the machines. Her voice cracked, raw and terrified. I barely escaped. Outside, another violent gust rocked the aircraft. The left engine coughed, strained, and stabilized, but barely. The F-22 pilot came on again. Respond now, or we will identify you ourselves. Her pulse hammered. They already knew. Of course they knew. She took a trembling breath, lifted the mic, and pressed the button. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. This is the pilot. Both the captain and co-pilot froze. The radio hissed softly. Then the F-22 pilot said words she prayed she'd never hear again. Starlight Asset Echo 5, is that you? Her blood ran to ice. Echo 5. Her call sign. The one she had buried so deep she thought it would never surface again. The one the program branded into her life like a scar. She swallowed hard, tears burning her eyes. Then, voice breaking, she whispered the truth. Echo 5 in control. The captain closed his eyes. The co-pilot exhaled in shock. And the F-22 pilot replied, voice cracking in disbelief. We thought you were dead. The girl's fingers tightened on the yoke as the plane dipped again, shaking violently. She steadied it, but her voice quivered as she said, I almost was. The plane dropped another 50 feet in a sickening lurch. Oxygen masks swung wildly. Loose objects slid across the cockpit floor. The girl's hands tightened around the shuddering yoke, every muscle in her forearms burning. She didn't flinch, didn't look away, didn't breathe. The F-22 on their left held tight formation, its pilot still processing the impossible. A missing Starlight Initiative asset, one presumed dead, flying a crippled commercial jet through a storm with the calm precision of a combat-seasoned aviator. Static hissed across the radio. Then the Raptor pilot spoke again, voice lower now, heavy with disbelief and something uncannily close to grief. Echo 5, how are you alive? Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. She didn't want to answer. Didn't want to revisit the thing she had fought so viciously to escape. But the plane trembled. The engine fire raged. And the truth was no longer optional. She kept her eyes forward, voice brittle as glass. Because I ran, she whispered. Because I stopped being their asset. Because I refused to be the ghost they kept in a simulator. The captain and co-pilot exchanged horrified glances. The F-22 pilot replied softly, almost in awe. You escaped Starlight. No one has ever escaped Starlight. She clenched her jaw. I did. A burst of turbulence slammed the aircraft again. The cockpit lights flickered. The stall warning chirped angrily. She counteracted with a rapid rudder adjustment, flattening the descent by sheer instinct. The co-pilot whispered, "She's fighting this plane harder than we ever could." The captain nodded slowly. She's not flying like a human pilot. She's flying like a weapon system. Her fingers trembled. She hated hearing that. But she didn't correct him. Because he wasn't wrong. Black, black, black. Echo 5, the Raptor pilot said. NORAD command has been notified. They want you identified and secured after landing. Her stomach twisted hard. Secured. She knew exactly what that meant. They would take her. Hide her. Use her. They can't take me back, she whispered, voice cracking. I'm not theirs anymore. The F-22 pilot hesitated. When he spoke again, his tone shifted. Not a soldier following orders, but a human reacting to the sound of a terrified child. Echo 5, how long were you in that program? She hesitated. Then, 10 years. They took me at 8. I left at 18. The co-pilot's face drained of color. 10 years, he whispered. 10 years of what? Constant flight simulation. She shook her head slowly. It wasn't just simulation. Her voice trembled as old memories clawed up her throat. Sterile labs, blacked-out windows, endless drills that ran until her vision white-outed. It was neural pattern optimization, reflex conditioning, zero-error decision loops, hours of maneuver testing until our muscles moved faster than thought. A tear escaped down her cheek. She didn't bother wiping it. They wanted pilots who could outfly machines, so they trained us like machines. The captain looked sick. How many kids were in your cohort? Her lips parted, but for a moment the words wouldn't come. Then she forced them out. 12. Silence. And how many survived? The captain asked quietly. Her eyes stared forward, empty and haunted. 3. The co-pilot's hand shook on the throttle. My God. She blinked hard. I was the last one. The others broke. They pushed too hard, too deep. Their minds collapsed under the strain. Her voice cracked in the middle of the next sentence. I was the only one strong enough to run. Black, black, black. The right engine's fire suddenly surged, hotter, brighter. Warning lights flashed across the panel like a domino wave. The heat signature bled into a dangerous threshold. Fire spreading into the wing root, the co-pilot shouted. If it reaches the main tank. The captain didn't need the rest of the sentence. If the fire hit the main tank, the wing could explode. The girl's voice hardened instantly. We need to descend now. But we're too high, the captain warned. Fast descent could. Trust me. It wasn't a request. It was a command. She pushed the yoke forward gently but firmly. The nose dipped. The altimeter spun downward. The airframe shook in protest. The threats multiplied. Wind shear. Heat bloom. Structural stress. But she guided the aircraft like she could see the wind itself. Even the F-22s adjusted to match her descent pattern, banking, diving, holding steady on each side. Then the left side Raptor broke radio silence again. Echo 5, tell me how you got out. Her breath wavered. It was during a blackout drill, she said. The generators failed. For 20 seconds, the whole wing of the facility went dark. She exhaled shakily. I ran from the labs to the hangar, from the hangar to the fence. I climbed until my hands bled. Her eyes glimmered with remembered terror. And I never looked back. The co-pilot swallowed. What happened after? I hid. I changed my name. I tried to live like a normal person. Her voice broke. But I'm not normal. Thunder cracked outside. The plane trembled again. She steadied it with the same deadly precision she had been trained for. I know too much, she whispered. I can do too much. The captain shook his head slowly. Kid, that's not a curse. That's a miracle. She didn't answer. She didn't believe him. Black, black, black. Suddenly the radio sputtered again, this time a new voice. Older. Deeper. One she recognized instantly. Her blood ran cold. No, she whispered, not him. The F-22 pilot sounded startled. Command, you're on this channel. The voice responded with crisp authority. Echo 5, this is Starlight Director Halden. Stand by for retrieval. You're coming home. Her chest collapsed inward like something had punched through it. The captain stiffened. The co-pilot's hands balled into fists. The girl's voice cracked into raw panic. No, I'm not going with you. I'm not going back. Director Halden didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Echo 5, you were designed for this. You belong with us. Tears pooled in her eyes. I belong free, she whispered. Another jolt shook the cabin. The plane lurched hard left, alarms screaming. She reacted instantly, countering, steadying, forcing the aircraft back into stable descent. The Raptors corrected with her, almost perfectly. Halden's voice sharpened. If you do not comply, Echo 5, we will force the Raptors to intervene. The captain's eyes widened. Intervene, what does that mean? Halden answered coldly. They will disable your aircraft. The cockpit froze. The co-pilot whispered, horrified. They'd kill us to reclaim you. Her tears finally fell, silent and terrified. She whispered the only truth that mattered. They don't care who dies, as long as they get me alive. The captain stared at her. Kid, he said softly, we're not going to let that happen. She swallowed, trembling. And how can you stop jets? The captain looked her dead in the eyes. You can. The girl blinked. The captain leaned closer, fierce determination burning in his expression. You didn't escape them to die here. You didn't survive 10 years of hell to be dragged back, not after everything you've already done. He pointed at the controls. You know their maneuvers. You know their limits. You know their orders before they execute them. She stared at him, stunned. Are you saying? Yes, he said simply. You're the only one here who can outfly a Raptor. Her breath caught. Her pulse surged. And for the first time since the fire started, something flickered inside her. Not fear. Not guilt. Not trauma. Resolve. Pure, sharp, unbreakable resolve. Halden spoke again through the radio. Echo 5, stop the descent and await retrieval. This is your last warning. She inhaled slowly. Then she whispered, without touching the mic. I'm not Echo 5 anymore. With a fierce, precise motion, she cut the descent angle, forcing the Raptors out of alignment, breaking formation, shocking every pilot in the sky. The Raptor pilot's startled voice came through. She just broke pattern. What is she doing? The girl gripped the yoke with both hands, her voice quiet but filled with a fire she hadn't felt in years. Fighting back. She glanced at the captain. You want me to outfly Raptors, she said. Her eyes hardened into steel. Watch me. Plane dropped another 50 feet in a sickening lurch. Oxygen masks swung wildly. Loose objects slid across the cockpit floor. The girl's hands tightened around the shuddering yoke, every muscle in her forearms burning. She didn't flinch. Didn't look away. Didn't breathe. The F-22 on their left held tight formation, its pilot still processing the impossible. A missing Starlight Initiative asset, one presumed dead, flying a crippled commercial jet through a storm with the calm precision of a combat-seasoned aviator. Static hissed across the radio. Then the Raptor pilot spoke again, voice lower now, heavy with disbelief and something uncannily close to grief. "Echo 5, how are you alive?" Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. She didn't want to answer. Didn't want to revisit the thing she had fought so viciously to escape. But the plane trembled. The engine fire raged. And the truth was no longer optional. She kept her eyes forward, voice brittle as glass. "Because I ran," she whispered. "Because I stopped being their asset. Because I refused to be the ghost they kept in a simulator." The captain and co-pilot exchanged horrified glances. The F-22 pilot replied softly, almost in awe. "You escaped Starlight. No one has ever escaped Starlight." She clenched her jaw. "I did." A burst of turbulence slammed the aircraft again. The cockpit lights flickered. The stall warning chirped angrily. She counteracted with a rapid rudder adjustment, flattening the descent by sheer instinct. The co-pilot whispered, "She's fighting this plane harder than we ever could." The captain nodded slowly. "She's not flying like a human pilot. She's flying like a weapon system." Her fingers trembled. She hated hearing that. But she didn't correct him. Because he wasn't wrong. "Black, black, black. Echo 5, the Raptor pilot said. "NORAD command has been notified. They want you identified and secured after landing." Her stomach twisted hard. Secured. She knew exactly what that meant. They would take her. Hide her. Use her. "They can't take me back," she whispered, voice cracking. "I'm not theirs anymore." The F-22 pilot hesitated. When he spoke again, his tone shifted. Not a soldier following orders, but a human reacting to the sound of a terrified child. "Echo 5, how long were you in that program?" She hesitated. "Then, 10 years. They took me at 8. I left at 18. The co-pilot's face drained of color. "10 years, he whispered. 10 years of what? Constant flight simulation." She shook her head slowly. It wasn't just simulation. Her voice trembled as old memories clawed up her throat. Sterile labs, blacked-out windows, endless drills that ran until her vision white-outed. It was neural pattern optimization, reflex conditioning, zero-error decision loops, hours of maneuver testing until our muscles moved faster than thought. A tear escaped down her cheek. She didn't bother wiping it. They wanted pilots who could outfly machines, so they trained us like machines. The captain looked sick. "How many kids were in your cohort?" Her lips parted, but for a moment the words wouldn't come. Then she forced them out. 12. Silence. "And how many survived?" the captain asked quietly. Her eyes stared forward, empty and haunted. 3. The co-pilot's hand shook on the throttle. "My God." She blinked hard. "I was the last one. The others broke. They pushed too hard, too deep. Their minds collapsed under the strain." Her voice cracked in the middle of the next sentence. "I was the only one strong enough to run." Black, black, black. The right engine's fire suddenly surged, hotter, brighter. Warning lights flashed across the panel like a domino wave. The heat signature bled into a dangerous threshold. "Fire spreading into the wing root," the co-pilot shouted. "If it reaches the main tank." The captain didn't need the rest of the sentence. If the fire hit the main tank, the wing could explode. The girl's voice hardened instantly. "We need to descend, now." "But we're too high," the captain warned. "Fast descent could." "Trust me." It wasn't a request. It was a command. She pushed the yoke forward gently but firmly. The nose dipped. The altimeter spun downward. The airframe shook in protest. The threats multiplied. Wind shear. Heat bloom. structural stress. But she guided the aircraft like she could see the wind itself. Even the F-22s adjusted to match her descent pattern, banking, diving, holding steady on each side. Then the left side Raptor broke radio silence again. Echo 5, tell me how you got out. Her breath wavered. It was during a blackout drill, she said. The generators failed. For 20 seconds, the whole wing of the facility went dark. She exhaled shakily. I ran from the labs to the hangar, from the hangar to the fence. I climbed until my hands bled. Her eyes glimmered with remembered terror. And I never looked back. The co-pilot swallowed. What happened after? I hid, I changed my name. I tried to live like a normal person. Her voice broke. But I'm not normal. Thunder cracked outside. The plane trembled again. She steadied it with the same deadly precision she had been trained for. I know too much, she whispered. I can do too much. The captain shook his head slowly. Kid, that's not a curse. That's a miracle. She didn't answer. She didn't believe him. Black, black, black. Suddenly the radio sputtered again, this time a new voice. Older. Deeper. One she recognized instantly. Her blood ran cold. No, she whispered, not him. The F-22 pilot sounded startled. Command, you're on this channel. The voice responded with crisp authority. Echo 5, this is Starlight Director Halden. Stand by for retrieval. You're coming home. Her chest collapsed inward like something had punched through it. The captain stiffened. The co-pilot's hands balled into fists. The girl's voice cracked into raw panic. No, I'm not going with you. I'm not going back. Director Halden didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Echo 5, you were designed for this. You belong with us. Tears pooled in her eyes. I belong free, she whispered. Another jolt shook the cabin. The plane lurched hard left, alarms screaming. She reacted instantly, countering, steadying, forcing the aircraft back into stable descent. The Raptors corrected with her, almost perfectly. Halden's voice sharpened. If you do not comply, Echo 5, we will force the Raptors to intervene. The captain's eyes widened. Intervene, what does that mean? Halden answered coldly. They will disable your aircraft. The cockpit froze. The co-pilot whispered, horrified. They'd kill us to reclaim you. Her tears finally fell, silent and terrified. She whispered the only truth that mattered. They don't care who dies, as long as they get me alive. The captain stared at her. Kid, he said softly, we're not going to let that happen. She swallowed, trembling. And how can you stop jets? The captain looked her dead in the eyes. You can. The girl blinked. The captain leaned closer, fierce determination burning in his expression. You didn't escape them to die here. You didn't survive 10 years of hell to be dragged back, not after everything you've already done. He pointed at the controls. You know their maneuvers. You know their limits. You know their orders before they execute them. She stared at him, stunned. Are you saying? Yes, he said simply. You're the only one here who can outfly a Raptor. Her breath caught. Her pulse surged. And for the first time since the fire started, something flickered inside her. Not fear. Not guilt. Not trauma. Resolve. Pure, sharp, unbreakable resolve. Halden spoke again through the radio. Echo 5, stop the descent and await retrieval. This is your last warning. She inhaled slowly. Then she whispered, without touching the mic. I'm not Echo 5 anymore. With a fierce, precise motion, she cut the descent angle, forcing the Raptors out of alignment, breaking formation, shocking every pilot in the sky. The Raptor pilot's startled voice came through. She just broke pattern. What is she doing? The girl gripped the yoke with both hands, her voice quiet but filled with a fire she hadn't felt in years. Fighting back. She glanced at the captain. You want me to outfly raptors, she said. Her eyes hardened into steel. Watch me. The hospital lights hummed softly, a sterile glow reflecting off polished floors and the pale blue curtains that framed the recovery room. Outside the window, dawn was just beginning to smear streaks of pink and gold across the Charleston horizon. The storm had finally died sometime during the night, leaving behind a fragile stillness, an almost sacred pause after the chaos. Inside the room, Mara Reyes lay propped up on the narrow hospital bed, still in a neck brace, still bruised along her temple but very much alive. Machines beeped gently behind her, a rhythm steady and reassuring. Her hands, though scraped and wrapped in small bandages, rested calmly on her lap. Calm. Something she never thought she'd feel again after the night the engines failed, and the sky dropped out from under them. But even now, surrounded by the quiet murmur of nurses, the smell of antiseptic, and the soft creak of her mother's chair shifting beside her, Mara couldn't shake the sense that something enormous was waiting just beyond this room. Like life itself was holding its breath. Her mother squeezed her hand, eyes red and swollen. You scared me, baby, you scared us all. Mara leaned toward her, wincing slightly. I'm okay, Mom. Her mom exhaled shakily. No, you're a miracle. Before Mara could respond, the door swung open, slow, measured, official. Two men entered, both in crisp Air Force blues, both wearing silver wings. And one of them she recognized. He was the F-22 pilot from the emergency landing, Captain Reeves. Call sign, Falcon, jaw squared, posture stiff, eyes razor-sharp, and still tracking every detail of the room like the world might tilt any second. The other man was older, tall, decorated, his uniform weighed down with ribbons, badges, and the unmistakable insignia of someone who issued orders, not followed them. General Everett. Her heartbeat quickened. Her mother stood fast. Who are you? Why are you here? The general stepped forward, voice deep enough to steady the floor. Mrs. Reyes, your daughter displayed exceptional aviation skill last night. Skills that exceed civilian training. Skills we need to discuss. Mara swallowed. Here it comes. The secret she had worked so hard to bury was finally clawing its way back into the open. Captain Reeves, Falcon, shifted uncomfortably. His stern expression softened into something like respect, maybe awe. Ma'am, he said to Mara, when the engines died, you didn't panic. You executed coordinated gliding maneuvers under instrument failure conditions. You kept the aircraft level while fighting a storm. And when we intercepted, you responded to military calls with precision. He glanced at the general. No civilian just does that. Her mom looked from Mara to the officers, confusion etched in the crease between her eyebrows. Mara, she whispered, why are they saying this? Mara closed her eyes. She hoped it would stay buried forever. She drew a breath, one that seemed to reach the deepest chambers of the past. Because, she said softly, I wasn't always a civilian. The room froze. Even the machines seemed to wait. General Everett nodded solemnly. Tell her. Mara opened her eyes suddenly sharper, as if the girl everyone thought they knew had stepped aside and the woman she used to be was resurfacing. Mom, I trained at the Air Force Academy, 2 years, fast-track aeronautics program. Her voice trembled. I wasn't just good, I was one of their top pilots in training. Her mother blinked at her, stunned silent. Mara continued, voice fragile but steady. But during a training simulation, something happened, something bad, a mid-air collision during an exercise. My instructor got injured. They said it wasn't my fault, but her throat tightened. I blamed myself. I quit before they forced me out. Captain Reeves' jaw set sympathetically. General Everett stepped closer, hands clasped behind him. You didn't quit because you weren't good enough. You quit because you cared too much. You're precisely the kind of pilot the Air Force wishes it could clone. Her mother covered her mouth with her hand, absorbing the revelation. Mara felt exposed, as though the entire room could see the fracture lines in her chest, the guilt, the shame, the dream she'd abandoned. So she whispered, "What happens now?" The general exchanged a look with Falcon. Then he said something that made Mara's breath catch. "We're here because of your call sign." Mara stiffened. Her mom leaned forward. "Call sign?" General Everett nodded. "During your academy training before the accident, your instructors gave you one, based on your instincts, your reaction time, and your ability to stay calm under impossible pressure." Falcon inhaled slowly. "When we heard it over the radio last night, it stunned our entire squadron." Mara could almost hear it again, her voice cracking through the storm, using that old code word she thought she'd never speak again. Her call sign. Her ghost from the past. Her mother squeezed her hand. What was your call sign?" Mara looked up at the two officers. General Everett answered for her. "Phoenix." The word dropped into the room like a stone hitting water, rippling through every corner, every shadow. Her mother gasped. Falcon's eyes narrowed with respect. And Mara, she felt something ignite in her chest, something she had smothered for years. A spark. A memory. A rebirth. The general continued, voice steady. Phoenix was a pilot who didn't crack under pressure, a pilot who rose when everything around her fell, a pilot who could think faster than fear. He took a breath. And last night Phoenix returned. Mara's throat tightened as heat flooded her eyes. She wasn't sure if it was pride, or terror, or both. Falcon stepped forward, his tone shifting into something almost gentle. "You saved 132 people with nothing but instinct and grit. No training cycle, no co-pilot, no flight plan. You flew a dead plane through a storm and gave us a fighting chance to guide you home." He paused. "And you did it better than half the operational pilots I know." A heavy silence settled. Mara's mother whispered, "So, what do you want from her?" General Everett straightened. "The Air Force wants her back." Mara froze. Every bone in her body went still. Her heart surged into her throat. Back. Back to the sky. Back to the life she abandoned. Back to the call sign she ran from. Her mom turned to her, eyes full of worry and pride and fear all tangled together. "It's your choice," she whispered. "But you only get one life, baby. Make sure it's one you can live with." Mara exhaled slowly. The storm in her mind was louder than the one she had flown through the night before. But beneath it, beneath all the fear and doubt, there was something else. A pull, a calling, a destiny. She looked up at the general. "At least tell me this," she said quietly. "If I came back, what would I be flying?" Falcon smiled for the first time. "Anything you want." Silence. Then, Mara let out a long breath, her decision forming like sunrise. "Then," she said softly, "it's time Phoenix stopped running." And in that moment, everyone in the room knew. The girl who survived the impossible wasn't done with the sky. Not even close. And